Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Driver's Ed Parent Meeting.
Hi, I'm Lisa Antonowicz, and I'm a driver education instructor here at Newton High School. Joining us soon will be Liz Gunn, and she's also a driver ed instructor. Teaching with us this summer will be Ted Jantz, and also joining us for this meeting will be Verlene Kieser, our bookkeeper, and she's the one in charge of processing all the online registrations as well as the ones that are mailed in. And Sam Anderson is our MC tonight. She's helping out. She's broadcasting this to you. And before we begin the meeting, I just want to let you know that we're kind of in a weird situation, weird times with the COVID-19. And if we are still on stay-at-home orders or sheltering in place, or they haven't really lifted the social distancing practices, this may be canceled and you will be fully refunded. We may have to delay the start by a couple of weeks to see how that goes. And then if that's the case, we may only offer one session. At this point, if we have two sessions, we're going to open that up for about 90 registrants. So we'd have about 90 students that we could have over the summer. So we may have to cancel or postpone. We'll let you know if we cancel, you'll get your refund. So I'm going to go ahead and start with our presentation. With the agenda, first off, you're going to learn about the requirements for driver education, the dates we'll offer, how to register online, our classroom, as well as the completion form. That's the DE99 form. Once your student completes driver education, they'll receive one of those forms from their driver education instructor. And I'll talk a little bit about that in detail when we get to it. If you have questions, you can comment, type in your comments, and I'll answer them all at the end, unless it's something super relevant that we need to talk about right at the moment. Otherwise, we'll answer all your questions at the end. So to begin with, the requirements and the eligibility for driver education, your student must be 14 by June 1st, which is when class begins, and priority is given to current NHS students because we have a cap of 90 students, so we give priority to in-district NHS students. What's recommended before you begin driver ed is to obtain your IP, your instructional permit through the DMV prior to the course. Now, right now, it's not open because of the stay-at-home and shelter-in-place thing going on. So if it opens up before driver's ed, you can get that IP. Maybe your student has already had that. So that's part of what's recommended. Vision screening is also part of your driver education and your IP and driver's ed. So the nurse has screened most students. If when Verlene processes your registration, if she sees that your student has not been screened, she will contact you and let you know that you need to get some screening, because we won't be able to process that until your vision is screened. And normally we'd send your student to the nurse, but since we're not at school, you'll have to get your vision checked somewhere else. The graduated driver licensing guidelines. This is in the handbook, the driver education handbook from the state of Kansas, the driver handbook. And I'll just kind of show you what it looks like, and each thing kind of pertains to your student. So you can look at the age of your student, and you can see the testing required, whether or not you need a parent approval, driver education if it's required. And this is in the driver handbook that you can have access to if you have the book. It's also online. This form is going to be on the website, so you can look at it in detail, so you can see, wow, does this really, what applies to my student? One thing I did find interesting, go back. Page 2, I'll show you. So if your student is 16, I'm not trying to work myself out of a job, but if your student is 16 years old and less than 17, yes, a vision test is required, a written exam, and a drive, and that could be through the Division of Motor Vehicles. And it says, or a certificate of completion from driver education. So if you're sitting here going, well, my student maybe necessarily doesn't have to take driver's education because it's not required. So you could, and you can even make appointments with the DMV. They don't have that testing in Newton, but like in McPherson or Wichita, you could make an appointment. And that's just kind of something to think about if you're kind of pressed for time. I know that it's good to have driver's education for your student, but that's just an option that's out there. So this will be accessible on the website, so you can look at it later at your leisure and kind of see where your student fits in. All right. Summer dates. Our first session each session is 3 weeks in length. So our first session is June 1st through the 19th. However, we're only in the classroom for the first week. So June 1 through 5, from 7 to 9 a.m., we're in the classroom. And then there will be driving times from 9 to noon and noon to 3. Now, your student may be in the class, well, your student will be in that classroom the first week, but they may not drive that first week. They may drive in weeks 2 or 3. So I know that's a little bit confusing for some. They're like, it's 3 weeks, but they're only in the classroom from 7 to 9 for the first week. And then their drive time is as scheduled. So we will have one day where EMS presents to us. I hope to make it in that first week so that students know, because we had it last summer kind of in the middle, and students were kind of confused as to, oh yeah, I had to come back for class for that because we give a presentation from the EMS. So that's session 1. Session 2 is June 22nd through July 10th. And once again, the required classroom time is the 22nd through the 26th from 7 to 9 a.m. And then you can have a scheduled drive time from 9 to noon or noon to 3. And if you know what works best for your schedule, day 1 of class, we set that driving schedule with your student. So make sure that you let your child know, hey, I want you driving 9 to noon, or you need to drive noon to 3. So sometimes they don't advocate and speak up, but that's how we set the driving times. Or you may just say, hey, we need to go week 1, or we need to drive week 2. So, and this is all kind of, contingent upon if we can still have this. I hope we do, and I hope it's safe, and but that's just something we need to consider. So if you have questions about that, because sometimes it's confusing, I may be able to explain it another way to you later, but definitely 7 to 9 a.m. for the first week of class, and then driving times as scheduled. Your student will be in the car for 3 hours. One of those hours they will drive, and the other 2 hours they are observing other student drivers. And that counts towards their driving time because they're also observing other drivers. So that's part of it. The online registration, that will open tomorrow, and you can register online. It's accessible on our website, and you do that through RevTrack. Or first of all, you pay through RevTrack, and it is the fees are listed there. But I believe if you have free or reduced lunches, it is $50. Or if you have free lunch. If you have reduced lunch, it's $100. And if you have regular lunches, it's $200. If you're an out-of-district student, it's $225. So you'll pay that through RevTrack online first, and then you will go to the online registration form. And basically, it's a series of filling out the legal name. This is the name that appears on the birth certificate, your address, whether they're male or female, their height, their weight, just questions like that. If you have an IP, it'll ask if you have an instructional permit already on that RevTrack form. So you will complete that. And once you've completed that online and you've paid, you're good to go. So we'll get that going. I'm not sure, and I'll have to ask for Lean if you decide on that form if you want first or second session. I don't know if Erlene's here with us now.
It doesn't look like it.
Okay, and that's okay. That's okay. And as I said, the vision screening, you may want to indicate on that form somewhere or somehow in that process which session you would prefer, first or second. And she may, once you register, contact you and ask you. But if there's some way that you can indicate which session you want to be in, definitely do so. And we hope to keep them as scheduled. The vision screening, as I said, hopefully has happened with the nurse. She seemed to think when I talked to her earlier that she'd gotten through most of the students. So if you're not from the district, you may need to have some kind of a screening, proof of that. So when we're in the classroom, we will have a special ed para that is available to support your student. And that is during our class time. She can also come in. We will have some makeups. Like if you don't pass with your test that day, you can come in for makeup, and that would be at 3 o'clock. So your student could come back in at 3, and also maybe at noon. Liz Gunn may also be there at noon. So noon or 3 to make up tests, and that we can have the para available as well for that. Your student's attendance is mandatory, so they need to be there, obviously for all their drives, but all the classroom times. And that's a total of 6 days. We're talking 5 classroom days and then 1 additional day for the EMS presentation. And we'll try to do that in sequence so the students are ready to go on that and not unaware and forget that we still have the EMS presentation. So that is from 7 to 9 a.m. They will need to do that. So we don't allow classroom makeups. We don't reteach them the material another time. So they need to be there in class. And I know 7's early, but got to get there. So make those plans accordingly for that. We school rules apply for dress code. So we still don't wear hats. And we say no flip-flops, no Crocs. It kind of needs to have, the shoe needs to have be a covered shoe like a tennis shoe or a strap in the back so it's not, flipping. And that's just not best practice when you're driving for braking, accelerating, and things like that. So make sure that they have tennis shoes on would be the best thing to wear. No cell phones during class, obviously. They'll put those away. If we take a break, we can, let them get their phones out. If they need to contact you about their drive time or something like that, they can have that accessible. When we're driving, all the students put their phones in the trunk, so they don't have that. So they're paying attention, obviously, when they're driving and to the other drivers. So it'll be there so they can contact you when they're done, when they need a ride to be picked up, but it will be in the trunk. They get a maximum of 4 tries to take the tests, and we'll have a handbook test, which is day 1 of class and required. Got to have that. And then we have, I believe, can't recall now, 5 or 6 unit tests, and those are all. You'll get a maximum of 4 tries on that test. On the 4th try, they will call you and let you know that they're taking their last attempt. So if they just keep, taking the test and missing too many and then trying again and not really studying the material, then we only give them 4 tries to pass that test. So they will let you know when they're on their 4th try, and if they don't succeed on that one, then they fail the class. So they need to take it seriously and study for their test. What should they bring on the first day? We want to have them bring a notebook, a pen or a pencil. If they already have a driving handbook, that would be great if they brought that. If they don't, obviously you're not going to be able to pick one up from the DMV right now, but on the website, you should be able to read it. It's there, so, just the digital format, so you can have access to it. So if they have it available to them, by all means, bring it. If not, and I don't know if any of you have printers, you can print it out for them, or they can definitely be studying it ahead of time before class begins. And so we'll have that handbook test the very first day of class. At the end, obviously, we'll give a PowerPoint presentation of material that's very pertinent to the test, but they want to come in prepared. So, and each unit that we have a PowerPoint, and we talk about the important points for the exam, and usually we'll give the PowerPoint the next day we test, but in order to get through this in 6 class periods, we do have the handbook test on the day 1. And each test, you have to get 80% in order to pass. So 80% or better. So we will test the handbook day 1. So upon completion of driver ed, they must demonstrate a proficient awareness of Kansas traffic laws, and that'll be evident to us behind the wheel. We'll get those hours logged, those minimum of 6 hours, and we will definitely see the demonstration of proficient awareness of the traffic laws. They will also demonstrate proficient performance of basic maneuvering tasks, being able to do all the maneuvers that we need, whether it's braking, accelerating, turning, parking, merging and exiting, dirt and sand roads. We do all kinds of maneuvering. So they'll have to demonstrate proficient performance of that. And then when they complete it, we will sign the DE 99 form. And maybe they're not 16 yet, they're still 15. So they need to hold on to that form, or they're still 14. And they hold on to that DE 99 form until they turn 15. And then they can go to the Division of Motor Vehicles, and they need to bring the Social Security card, their birth certificate, you, your parent, the parent, and a photo ID. You also need to probably bring proof that you live at your address, like a water bill or something like that. And you go with them and with their completion form that's signed by the instructor. Then they can get their restricted license at that point when they turn 15. Okay, so hang on to that. If your student happens to lose it, it can be reprinted, but we charge them $5 from the bookkeeper. So because she has to sign it, print it again, sign it, she's got to get the teacher, and the teacher has to sign that form. So hold on to that. That's important. That's how you get your restricted license. That's the document you turn in. So how can you best prepare your student for driver's education? Go over the handbook. If the handbook isn't accessible, you don't have it because you haven't been to the DMV, use the online test to practice. If they don't already have their IP, test online. They have those practice tests available to them, and that's really a great means for them to practice for that handbook test. And you can discuss, like when you're driving, about best practices and rationale. Talk to them about what you're doing. Like have them notice, how soon are you going to your brake? When do you start to turn? At what point do you go to your accelerator when you're turning? Because some of them really haven't paid a lot of attention. They've been on their device and they don't really understand those things. And some of them haven't had a lot of experience. And so talking with them about what you're doing while you're driving helps them learn. And then get that IEP now if you haven't already. And if they have their IEP, great. Practice with them. It's a process. Be aware it's going to take some time, and it's it doesn't happen overnight. And we see that with their maneuvers. But when it clicks, it's great to see the confidence they get once that they feel like they can actually do the maneuvers. So it's kind of awesome to see that. Just practice that with them. And I know for you don't have a brake on your side, and it may be a little scary, but try some low risk practice in places that you feel comfortable letting them drive. So, and then get driving, get to practicing with them. So the last thing, just to be aware that it is a serious, when you're behind the wheel, it's very serious. Motor vehicle crashes are the leading cause of death for 14 to 18-year-olds in the U.S. In fact, almost half of the teen drivers involved in a crash die. Yet, a recent survey showed that only 25% of parents have had a serious talk with their kids about the key components of driving. You're the parent, they are your children, and they still have a lot to learn. You can teach them, and you may just help save their lives. So you're just a big part of this process. As instructors, we're going to do our part to make sure that your student is aware of all the laws and all the rules and all the key components of driving and tips to help them. But, inevitably, it's your guidance that's going to help them be safe drivers. So, and that is my presentation. So what questions do you have at this point? Sam's probably keeping a log of those, and you can fire away.
All right. Well, Penny Dorado's been on helping us answer some questions. So thank you, Penny. Okay. You stated it, but just to go over it again, what's the cost?
Okay. And that is on the website as well. If the student has free lunches. It is a $50 fee. If the student is on reduced lunches, it's $100. If the student has regular lunch, it's $200. And if they are out of district, it's $225. And that will be on the website, printed as well. It's one of the links for, and it's on the website. So in case you forget that or need clarification, it's there.
And is there a discount for having multiple children or students sign up?
I don't believe so.
And I know you touched on it, but in case some people were late, can out-of-district teens attend if living in Newton?
Yes, and they will have the $225 fee, knowing that we have a cap of 90 students. So first priority goes to NHS students, and then like incoming NHS students, like 8th graders coming in, and then out-of-district students. Now, if we get to where we have to delay and we have to start late because of the coronavirus, the COVID-19, and we have to start late and we only can offer one session, then it's going to go to NHS students, and it's going to be those that are closest to needing to drive. So the older kids are going to be getting that first whack at it because they need it the most and they are closest to being able to drive. So we're going to give our priority to them.
All right. And what's the deadline for signing up?
I think that it's like May 15th is the deadline. I believe I saw that somewhere on the page. So just know that, first come, first serve kind of thing. But we will give priority to the NHS students. So, and somewhere indicating whether you want that first session or the second session would be good.
All right.
And Lisa, I'd like to add on to that as well. Sorry, I kind of just showed up. Hello. When you look at the sessions, if we're able to do this in a normal fashion, you need to be able to make all of those times that you're going to sign up for. So if it's first session that you're going to go for, or whether it's second session, when we have class, you've got to be there for that entire time. And when you sign up to drive, then you need to be there for those dates. So you need to be aware of what your summer calendar is, because we're trying to get a whole bunch of schedules organized so that we can make this happen. So please be very cognizant, be aware of what your schedule is going to look like.
And I want to piggyback onto that as well, because last summer, some of the students didn't realize, I'm in first session. And then we almost had to call and get them there on day one. So be really aware of which one you signed up for and show up on that day. Day one, that Monday, we're starting. So,
and we promise that we will let you know if this thing is going or if we're changing dates, or, as we find out from the state, from the national government and everything, and we find things out, we will get that information out to you and update our webpage as quickly as possible.
Someone asked what date, so I think they're thinking like what dates will it be and where, 7 a.m. to 9 a.m.?
Okay, let me go back to the dates, because I have... It's June 1 is the first date, and I'll put it back up there. Here we go. So again, session 1 is June 1 through the 19th. But remember, they're only going to be in class June 1st through 5th, 7 to 9 a.m. Their driving times will be as scheduled, and we will schedule those the first day of class. And you want to have your student come in knowing, hey, I want to go 9 to noon, or I want to go noon to 3. So that works into your schedule and they need to advocate for that because we sign up on day 1. There'll also be that EMS presentation, and I had it originally signed before we closed down for this, but now I have to reschedule, and I'm going to try to get it June 1 through 5, or at least maybe on the 8th, so that we're kind of in succession, so that we don't bring them back later in that 3-week time for a 7 to 9 slot for just that presentation. Love to have it that first week if we could. So session 2, again, June 22nd through July 10th. And that is also on the website. This whole presentation will be on the website, and the YouTube link that we're now recording will be on the website. So.
And do they need a retake if they have their learner's permit already?
Yes. We take the handbook test the very first day, and they have to pass it as part of driver education, even if they have their IP. That's a good question.
What's the website for the handbook?
Okay. Kansas State Department. Would that be on the KSDE?
Yeah, I'm looking right now.
Okay. So you're going to check that for you and let you know how to access that handbook. And the online test, if you Google Kansas State Handbook online test, pretty sure you're going to find a search for that and be able to practice those tests. Because KSDE does do, or maybe that's the part of the, I'm sure the handbook is on there.
And then what if the
I'm
DM...
loading right now, and it looks like it is the handbook itself, and it is part of the Kansas Department of Revenue.
Okay.
That was that one. I just also picked up, they've got a practice one on drivingtests.org.
There you go.
So, and all I did was I just Googled KSDE online handbook driver test, and they have some practice tests on drivingtests.org, and they also have a copy of the driver's handbook then with the kansasrevenue.org, Department of Revenue.
And parents, students are usually pretty motivated to get that driver's license, so they're gonna definitely take an interest in preparing themselves with these tests. So.
One parent asked, what if the DMV isn't open?
Yeah, they're not going to be able to get their IP then before driver's education. Likely not going to happen. If we do have to delay, yet the DMV opens, but we don't find it safe yet with social distancing practices, they may have a window of time to get that before driver's education. But I would imagine that there'll be a backlog because there'll be a lot of people that need to renew and things like that. So if they don't already have it, chances are they probably at this time, it may not happen.
Do kids have to take the class to get a permit at 14?
You can get your instructional permit at 14 through the DMV, but to get a restricted license at 15, you have to take driver's education.
And then to have the extra restrictions lifted when you turn 16, you have to have driver's education.
Okay, can you fit multiple students in a family in the same class schedule?
We can sure try.
With 3 instructors,
If your student already has their IP, will they need an additional vision test, and will they need to take the handbook test the first day since they would have needed it to take it for the permit already?
Yes, everybody will need to take the test the first day, the handbook test. That's just standard for driver's education. Whether they've taken it before and passed it, first day, in order to pass driver's education, you have to take that test with us.
Okay. So the weeks following that initial class time, they only go for 3 hours a day?
correct.
Just when they're driving.
Yeah, just when they're driving. Now, if they happen to be getting the first week of driving, then they're going to have 5 hours a day of driver's ed for the whole first week if they are in week 1. But if they're in week 2 or 3, the only part of their requirement would be 3 hours a day.
just coming back in for the driving.
Correct.
My student's IP expires May 30th. Will we need to renew it?
No, you should be able to use your DE 99, and that will go ahead and I think they wouldn't have to renew their IP. I'm not going to speak that. Liz, what do you think?
Once they pass the handbook test with us, then we will be able to issue them a new learner's permit.
They will have to take that form to the DMV, though. We'll sign it that says they passed the IP, and they'll have to take it to the DMV. Correct, Liz?
Yeah, they'll take it to the DMV, and they'll go ahead and renew that until and that will be their license then until as they're restricted. By passing it with us, then we'll turn that into the state, and that will allow us to be able to have them drive in the car with us while we do driver's ed in the meantime.
So can a student get her permit in late July and then take the class next year?
Yep.
One other consideration, if they do not pass the handbook test on the first day and they signed up to drive and they don't have an IP, they can't drive.
That first week.
So would have to reschedule their drive. So we typically take somebody in the first week that already has an IP. So we don't have that issue.
Okay, we've gotten to the end of the questions.
Liz, do you want to add anything else just for the good of the whole? And if they hear it again, it's okay.
I have complete faith that you covered everything.
We can always check it on you too. If not, we'll reiterate it with your students the first day of class. So we really look forward to working with them. We enjoy doing this.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun, and it's great learning for the kids. And, they get a little, some of them get a little uptight, get a little scared, but we try to put them at ease. That's what we're good at, and get them relaxed and ready to learn how to drive if they don't already know. So
sometimes it's nice to go out without your parents and drive. So
yeah, because we don't yell at them.
Well, I don't know. Every once in a while I've gone up and over a curve and I've been like, what the heck? But
We had a couple more, last question or minute questions, if that's okay.
Sure.
My son just turned 14 during this COVID. From this instruction, in my understanding, because of the DMV closure and potential backlog, will he not be able to take the class this summer?
No, he's 14. He can take it.
He can take the class. That's not a problem. What we'll do is it may take time with the processing and everything once the driver's ed starts, but he's already of the right age that he can take it.
Yes. And if they have not been able to get that IP because of this, and they were really excited about doing it, and day one, they passed that handbook test. We print a form on day one for every student that passes it. And then the top half, we keep. The bottom half, we will give to your student and sign it if they don't have an IP. We will sign it and date it, and that's the form that you take to DMV and get your instructional permit. So they can have it, because we encourage them. We're like, get it now because you need it for a year. So we, get on the hurry,
And to piggyback a little bit on that one too, I would not be completely surprised if when things get back up and running, DMV is working and doing things, they're probably, because of how many people are going to be in a similar situation, not to mention all of our current drivers who are out here driving on the roads right now that need to update and get their IDs going, plus the extra pressure of everybody trying to get the new driver's license by October 1st. I could see the Newton office deferring people to McPherson, to Hutch, or to Wichita. So there might be some challenges on going to the current, like the Harvey County courthouse, to get ours once we get it back into the swing of things and things start moving. So just be prepared for that. There's going to be a lot of aches and pains as we move and transition in the seasons.
And before we had the shutdown, it was spring break time, and there were emails going about from the state saying, hey, you can actually make an appointment at McPherson, at Wichita, in Topeka. So I don't know that that's the case in Newton, but the bigger DMVs where they actually do the drives with some of the older students, you can make an appointment. And so that's kind of what I would recommend. Make an appointment. That way you know your time is, and they may say, hey, we're so backlogged, we're not going to do it. So, but that's just something I would think about in advance.
Someone asked if there's sessions in July. There's half a session in July.
The only way it would, get later into July is if we had to delay the start.
And then Avon asked if it will be posted, and it will be, and we'll email it out. And then, do you take out of district students? We've covered that. Will you explain it again, though, for some of the?
Yeah, we will take out of district students, but Newton students have first priority.
And June 1st is the cutoff date to turn 14, right?
Yes.
And then they don't need an IP before driver's ed.
No, it's recommended. If they're 14, it's great to have it, but they don't have to.
And then, do we have a link for registration? It's on the website, right?
And it becomes available tomorrow. There are other options, and you could see that on the website. If you do not register online, you can also print a fillable form, and with your check, mail it to the district office, and there'll be an address given. So you can mail in your payment and your form at that time, and we'll process it.
And then when we mail out this presentation, we can put the link in the email to make things a little easier on you. Okay, I think we've reached the end of the questions again. So I think we can wrap it up.
Sounds good.
Thanks for being here tonight. Appreciate it.
Thank you.